It is Sunday, February 9th. Long time no post. I've been very busy with FFA stuff and ag program things and haven't really had much time to make any videos around what we're doing on the farm. Just like everyone else, we are currently sort of experiencing an egg shortage, but it's more seasonal egg shortage than any other issue. Hopefully, once the daylight lengthens, we will see more eggs being laid. The reason I say that is it's the time of year where I kick up and start my incubators. Last week, when I returned from my agricultural college trip, I did reset some of these incubators. I had quail that hatched out at some point last week, and I never got around to cleaning out the incubators. By the time I got home on Tuesday, it was pretty stinky in here. So the first thing I did is, as soon as I walked in the door and put my bags down, was reset these incubators. I had set about 2 of them full. There were a few slots left, but I had completely filled one and almost completely filled the second one. That was about 5 days ago. So what I did earlier, because I had a customer contact me wanting to pick up eating eggs, is I collected all the eggs in the chicken coop, came in here, and candled the eggs that I had started on Tuesday to see if I could see any development. And there were some quitters that I pulled out to make space for new eggs. Because of the uncertain situation right now with hatcheries, the only thing that I've ordered for this growing year is meat chickens and meat turkeys. I anticipate hatching out my own eggs to boost up my laying flock again. My flock is NPIP AI tested on a yearly basis, and I don't bring in strange birds. I either buy chicks from the hatchery and grow them out myself, or I will hatch out my own chicks and add them to my flock, so there's not really a concern for biosecurity. Also fired up the 3rd incubator that I had and just set that one as well. When I pulled out the quitters and I put in new eggs, I made sure to write the date on them that I was putting them in. So that way when the first round hatches, I know which eggs not to pull out when they don't hatch within 24 to 48 hours of hatch day. This is the mess in this room. This is one of our spare rooms in the house, and this is really the dog's room. So you can see there's just stuff here. The one downfall to this room in particular is that the people that built this addition off of our house did not put heat in these rooms. There is a main family type living area that has a coal stove, but there is no heat in these rooms. So I'm curious to see how this incubation process goes and if I will have to move them out to the common area where there is heat, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm going to give this a shot first because it's easier to keep them in here. I know that the kids won't touch them. I don't have to worry about them getting knocked or accidentally unplugged because nobody comes over to this side of the room. Now, obviously, we are in the state of New York, so we have had dramatic increases in temperature, but we've also had dramatic decreases in temperature. And part of the problem when you're working a full-time job off the farm, or as I have been doing, traveling several days over the last week, is that you're not home to collect eggs before they freeze when it gets really cold out. So I'm also interested to see how that will affect development, because typically when it's really cold and you try to collect eggs for incubation, if there's not a hen sitting on those eggs after they're laid and you go to collect them and they've had a chance to freeze but not crack the shell, the chance of hatch is very low. Anyway, I have 2 nurture rights that I've had for a while now, and then I have this one over here that I actually got off of TikTok Shop last spring. This is the one that I hatched my quail out of, and I had a very high hatch rate, way more than I thought that I would have. So initially, when I reviewed this incubator, I kind of was on the fence about it because I didn't have great hatch rates when I tried it in, I think it was June. But when I pulled it off the shelf, plugged it in, made sure it was cleaned out and sanitized, plugged it in, I did have a decent hatch rate on the quail. And all I did, next time I do it, I'll have to take a picture. But I doubled up the eggs. So I did like crisscross, and I put 2 quail eggs per chicken egg set. And I think I only filled half of the incubator. I ended up with, I think, 17 quail. One had a deformity, and I think one just didn't make it. This one is getting angry because it's not up to temperature yet. It's getting there. I literally just plugged it in like 30 minutes ago. Anyway, so when I pulled out these eggs to make room for new eggs, the eggs that were not developing, this is an example of what a quitter looks like. You can see it must have started to develop, but it just has that red ring around the side of it, and that means that it's not viable. I'm not really sure why this happened to this egg, but I have not touched them since Tuesday. I have not taken the tops off of the incubator, so this was the first time that I checked them, and it was only to make room for those other eggs that I had just collected and I wanted to start. There's no point in keeping these quitter eggs in there if you are really trying to get max capacity to hatch. And quickly, I'm going to show you an example of one that is actually developing. So this, again, we're at like day 5, and you can see clearly the chick beginning to develop. You can see the veins that are intact in there. And this is definitely a viable egg. On these darker shade eggs, it can be a little bit more of a guessing game, and I can see it way better in real life than you can probably see on this video. But there is a developing embryo up here. I can see the veins. It is very hard to see in this video, but I do believe this one is a viable egg. Yep, you can see that dark spot right there. I do try not to candle them if I can help it, just because I feel like it lowers the instance of hatching, handling them more and exposing them to being out of the incubator. But in reality, if a chicken is hatching eggs, she's not on that nest 24/7. She does get off and go eat and drink. And if I'm only doing it once a week, I think it's a little bit less of a harm. The only reason I'm candling right now is because I'm trying to replace some of my older hens in my chicken coop. And typically I would place a hatchery order for laying pullets, like day-old newborn chicks that would be shipped to me via USPS. But because of what this market is doing and the unpredictability of it, I just want to have a little bit more control over that. So I will keep you updated. I'm going to bump up the humidity a little bit in these incubators. I know that some people get really worked up over the humidity, and there have been times where I've dry hatched chicks, and I've hatched so many incubators full of eggs that I don't really notice a difference between the ones that we maintain the humidity on versus the ones that I set it and forget it basically until 3 days before hatch. Sometimes I forget that they're even going to hatch until I start hearing the peeping. Everybody does it differently, but that's what's going on with me right now. I do have to make a trip down to the barn at some point. I have been so insanely busy that I haven't really spent much time observing my livestock, and my sheep are about a month out from lambing. I anticipate vaccinating them this week. I did order vaccines and they are getting shipped to me. I think they're supposed to ship on Monday. So hopefully by the end of the week, I'll be able to vaccinate them. This will be the first year at my attempt to vaccinate for sore mouth, because it has been such an issue. And with the addition of the solar site and them going out there in April and being relatively unsupervised, aside from one a day visit for 10 or 15 minutes, I think that I really want to try that and see how it works. The reason I made the choice to try the sore mouth vaccine is because over the last few years, and it doesn't matter if the ewe has had sore mouth before or not, they do get reinfected, and it's just the nature of the beast. And we have concrete in our barn and there is wood, so it very well could be that when those lambs hit the ground, they're in the barn, because typically it's still snowing when we have lambs born. This year it'll be even earlier. Typically we shoot for April. This year is going to be March, because I want them well started before we take them to the solar site. It's only 10 miles, I think, from door to door. It's not that far, but I just want to give them the best chance of success with the least percentage of fatalities. I feel like if you have sheep or goats, you're going to deal with sore mouth. And I guess if you have any questions, I can provide you with my experiences. But there have been some ewes that have been great producers, able to raise multiple lambs, ends up getting sore mouth on her teats. And even with treatment, they don't always heal and they don't regain production out of that teat. So it limits her productivity and limits the years that she'll be in the flock. So I'm interested to see once I do this if it will actually help at all. But this is my trial. I have sore mouth either way. I might as well try to prevent active infections when lambs are nursing off of the moms. Again, if you have experience with that, feel free to share it.